Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here and 4Ks. And today I'm going to go through several Kino Lorber titles and Kino Lorber adjacent titles, if I can get to them. There's a lot to cover, and unfortunately I haven't been able to get through all the discs, but I definitely want to raise awareness for some of these releases in case you missed that they came out, and where I can show you alternate artwork, etc., so you can get a sense of what you'd be getting if you pick one of these up. I'll start with the 4Ks. We'll start with Leviathan, 1989, directed by the great George P. Cosmatos, father of the equally great Panos Cosmatos. Panos directed Beyond the Black Rainbow and Mandy, of course, and I know he's got a new one in the works. I can't wait for it. Anyway, this is his dad, and his dad was a pretty enjoyable filmmaker in his own right. He made Leviathan in 1989. This is after he had made, a big success with First Blood, Rambo First Blood Part 2 in 1985 with Stallone, followed by Cobra in 1986 with Stallone. And then he does Leviathan in 89 and, of course, Tombstone in 1993. One of my favorites, and I think Panos' favorite of his dad's, is Of Unknown Origin, which he directed in 1983 with the great Peter Weller. Killer rat movie that's pretty great. But anyway, so Leviathan in 4K. Looks very nice. The grain fluctuates a little bit on it, but it seems pretty clean, and I think, I didn't compare it to my Scream Factory, but it felt like a big step up in terms of the actual scan. This is a brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master from a 4K scan of the 35 inner positive, and it looks really nice. Plunge into this go for the jugular sci-fi thriller starring Peter Weller and Richard Crenna, and featuring nonstop action, nerve-shattering suspense, and awesome creatures by special effects legend Stan Winston, who worked on Aliens, among other films. On the dark and forbidding ocean floor, the crew of a deep-sea mining rig discovers a sunken freighter that harbors a deadly secret, a genetic experiment gone horribly wrong. With a storm raging on the surface and no hope of rescue, the captain, Peter Weller, and his team are propelled into a spine-tingling battle for survival against the ultimate foe, a hideous monster that cannot die and lives to kill. Directed by George P. Cosmatos, from a script by David Webb Peoples, who was one of the writers of Blade Runner, and Jeb Stewart, who was one of the writers on Die Hard. I just recently saw Switchback, which is one of the only a few movies that Jeb Stewart directed, with Danny Glover and Dennis Quaid. Really great thriller from the 90s that I think is being slept on at the moment. But anyway, when I see Jeb Stewart, I think about Switchback, which still doesn't have a great Blu-ray, I don't think, if any. A gripping and imaginative thrill ride that will leave you gasping for air and clawing for the surface. Featuring Amanda Pays, Daniel Stern, Ernie Hudson, Michael Carmine, Lisa Eilbacher, Hector Elizondo, Meg Foster, with music by Jerry Goldsmith. So yeah, it's interesting when you have these films that come out that end up kind of chasing a trend, if you will. So the same year, all three of these films come out. You get Deep Star 6 first, which is very similar to this, if I recall, and which Kino has put out on a Blu-ray. I don't think there's a 4K of that yet. Then you get Leviathan, and then you get James Cameron's The Abyss, which is obviously the most accomplished and critically acclaimed of the underwater monster films. Although, The Abyss is more like underwater Close Encounters. And Leviathan's interesting because it is very much Aliens, one. Even the corridors of the ship and just the camaraderie, it feels a lot like Aliens, or Alien more specifically, in terms of the dynamic at play. Daniel Stern is walking HR nightmare. He's into sexually harassing just about all the female members of the crew, which is weird to see him doing because I'm used to him as sort of a gentler character for the most part. But yeah, then Richard Crenna plays the doctor, and Weller is I guess he's a geologist that's been assigned to this station by the, corporate overlords, and Meg Foster plays that role. She's very much like the Paul Reiser of this movie. Very not so nice in some ways. But it's a fun 80s monster movie, and there are also shades of The Thing. If you're into John Carpenter's The Thing, which is a huge favorite of mine, it has some of that in it as well. So anyway, it is an enjoyable film. The transfer looks good. We've got an alternate cover art that you can flip, and it comes with a slipcase, of course. It has an audio commentary by film historian Steve Mitchell and Nathaniel Thompson, Leviathan Monster Melting Pot featurette, Dissecting Cobb, interview with actor Hector Elizondo, and Surviving Leviathan, interview with actor Ernie Hudson, who obviously we know from Ghostbusters, who is really good in this as well. I really like, he actually has some of the, it's along the lines of sort of the way he functions in Ghostbusters, is almost like our surrogate. This stuff is getting crazy, and he has some great dialogue and one-liners that I really enjoyed. But yeah, it's a good cast. Amanda Pays and Lisa Albacher, I'm a fan of both actors. Lisa Albacher, you remember from Beverly Hills Cop. Amanda Pays, I don't know quite as well. She does look familiar, though. She's definitely been in some other stuff. But then, yeah, of course you have Hector Elizondo. Elizondo's always reliable, and a solid score from the great Jerry Goldsmith. 235-1 in 4K. That's Leviathan. Then we jump backwards in time to the year 1957. This is Gunfight at the OK Corral with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. Burt Lancaster is Wyatt Earp. Kirk Douglas is Doc Holliday. This is a cool one. I hadn't seen it in a while, and again, the transfer looks nice. This is a brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master by Paramount from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. And it's directed by John Sturges, who I'll get into in just a second. But a gang of ruthless outlaws, a pair of larger-than-life heroes, a timeless tale of good versus evil. Blended together, the result is a sprawling epic adventure bigger than the wild frontier. Gunfight at the OK Corral. Screen legends Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas team up to rid Tombstone, Arizona, of the murderous Clanton gang in this all-star action-packed classic. When lawman Wyatt Earp, that's Lancaster, and gunfighter Doc Holliday, that's Douglas, ride into town, they find themselves pitted against one of the biggest foes ever encountered in the form of Ike Clanton, played by Lyle Betger, and his posse of cutthroats. It isn't long before the confrontation explodes into a survival-at-all-costs battle with Rhonda Fleming, Joe Van Fleet, John Ireland, Dennis Hopper, DeForest Kelley from Star Trek, Martin Milner from Adam 12, and Lee Van Cleef among the screen luminaries swept into the drama and excitement of the Wild West's most legendary six-gun showdown. Shot by Charles Lang, scored by Dmitry Tiomkin, who did Rio Bravo. Love his score in that. Scripted by Leon Uris, and staged magnificently by John Sturges. They mention here director of Bad Day at Black Rock, The Magnificent Seven, and The Great Escape. Those are certainly three of his most high-profile films, but he did a ton of stuff that I'm a fan of. I talked about Marooned on a Pickups video recently, that great space, I guess, drama. The Eagle Has Landed, Ice Station Zebra, Last Train from Gun Hill, which I can't remember if that's getting a 4K or not. I don't remember. The John Wayne, I think he's a cop in McHugh. There's one called The Satan Bug, which is a really interesting one with George Maharis about a contagious virus that gets loose. He's just got a ton of features. He worked for a really long time and made a lot of great movies. I'm a big fan of John Sturges. So cool to see this on 4K. And, just having talked about George P. Cosmatos and Tombstone, this is obviously the same story, and a story that was told many times. I think I talked about Wichita with, I'm blanking on his name right now, but that's another sort of story of Wyatt Earp. So Wyatt Earp is a very popular one, but this is definitely among my favorite adaptations of this character. And Joel McCrea is who I was trying to think of. This has an audio commentary by the great author and screenwriter C. Courtney Joyner and film historian Henry Park from True West magazine. C. Courtney Joyner, really great commentaries from him, and I do like that they try to include at least a commentary on just about all the Kino releases. So this is another one with a nice transfer, and if you're a fan of these kind of westerns, it's kind of a must in my mind, ultimately. So that is Gunfight at the OK Corral from 1957. Next we have The Last Castle. Oh, you love that sound, don't you? A disc is loose. A disc is loose in here. Actually, both discs are loose. We collectors know that sound like nails on a chalkboard. Anyway, so this is The Last Castle. This is from 2001. And for whatever reason, I thought that that since Robert Redford's in it, that he had directed it, but he did not. This is Rod Lurie directed. Rod Lurie, one of those. I think he was a former film critic and then became a screenwriter, and he did things like the remake of Straw Dogs. I don't know if that's quite his most recent thing, but he did The Contender in 2000 previous to this. That's a pretty solid one. And a movie called Deterrence, which I really like, from 1999, with Kevin Pollak playing the president of the United States and dealing with like an international military crisis while he's confined to like a diner. A really, really solid one that I don't think has a Blu-ray either. I could be misremembering, but I like Deterrence a lot. Anyway, so this is Rod Lurie. This is one I have not seen. Brand new HDR Dolby Vision master by Paramount from a 4K scan of the 35 camera negative. This is a really great cast. I'll get into that in a second. Explosive star power meets spectacular action when Robert Redford goes up against James Gandolfini in this powerhouse action thriller. His service to his country made him a hero, but one mistake made him a prisoner. For General Eugene Irwin, that's Redford, it's just a matter of serving out his sentence until he makes the shocking discovery that his fellow inmates are being murdered. Now Irwin is taking command one last time and unifying the inmates in a desperate battle to overcome a brutally corrupt system and show the world the truth. Directed by Rod Lurie, The Contender, The Last Castle crackles with action, drama, and top-notch cast. Includes Mark Ruffalo, obviously really great in Poor Things, but great in so many, not great in anything. He's always wonderful. Paul Calderone from King of New York, Clifton Collins Jr., Robin Wright, and Delroy Lindo are all part of this cast. This one really intrigues me. Like, it's a prison movie. I like prison movies. And just the idea of, Gandolfini being sort of this evil force against Redford with this whole other incredible cast. I'm very, very intrigued by this one. But assuming the transfer is pretty good, these Paramount 4K scans tend to be solid. So I haven't had a look at it yet, but it's definitely one I'm curious to check out. This new 4K of The Last Castle has an audio commentary by Rod Lurie, which is great. I love his commentaries. The ones I've heard so far are very thoughtful. Rod Lurie on The Last Castle, like an interview, HBO First Look Inside the Walls of The Last Castle featurette, A Hero's Farewell, a discussion of the alternate ending, and then deleted scenes with optional commentary by Lurie. So you get that ending in the deleted scenes, I believe. But yeah, really great cast, new 4K, no reversible artwork, but still under the radar, I think, is what I would call The Last Castle. And the same thing goes for this. Suspect Zero. So this one, I just barely remember it coming out. This came out in 2004. And this is a 4K, and it's directed by a guy named E. Elias Merhige, who I don't know. This is a Dolby Vision, brand new HDR Dolby Vision master from a 4K scanner with a 35 camera negative. The transfer does look good, although there's some things about the way that it's shot that I think are interesting. Let's see here. From filmmaker and nightmare conjurer E. Elias Merhige. Oh, he did Begotten and Shadow of the Vampire. That's why I was trying to remember. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. That's why I was excited about this, was because if you haven't seen Begotten, it is something else. It's like Eraserhead meets like Nosferatu or something. I mean, I don't even know how to describe that. It's a bizarre film. And Shadow of the Vampire is like, I don't know. It's John Waters meets it's not quite that campy, but it's definitely campy. It's got Willem Dafoe. It doesn't have a nice Blu-ray. I really want a Blu-ray of Shadow of the Vampire. Anyway, comes a visionary twist on the psychological suspense thriller when tortured FBI agent Thomas McAway, that's Aaron Eckhart, is called in to investigate a series of bizarre murders. The trail leads to the enigmatic Benjamin Orion, that's Ben Kingsley, trained in a secret government program enabling elite agents to telepathically get into the minds of killers. Orion himself is hunting down what he has labeled the ultimate serial killer and manifestation of evil, Suspect Zero. McAway, now reunited with his former partner, Carrie-Anne Moss, plays that, must determine if Orion's ability to identify with murderers has turned him into the very same type of monster he's trying to bring justice to. Featuring cinematography by Michael Chapman, who shot Taxi Driver and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Suspect Zero is a stunningly original and audacious glimpse into the heart and mind of evil. So, the post-7, Silence of the Lambs serial killer thing we're talking about, that is what this is. That is this is sort of the tail end of that, I guess. I don't know if it's never really gone away, but this has an audio commentary by the director. What we see when we close our eyes, a 4-part featurette, like making of, basically. Remote viewing demonstration, alternate ending with optional commentary by the director. Script by Zach Penn and Billy Ray. Zach Penn, quite the prolific screenwriter, and does a variety of things too. I didn't know he did thrillers like this, but anyway, this one does not have alternate artwork, but definitely, like I said, as with Last Castle, kind of under the radar, kind of a movie that people aren't really talking about at the moment. So might be one for a blind buy, or just in general for folks that are into that sort of, psychological thriller kind of thing with a good cast and a cool director. So that's Suspect Zero. I think that's the last of the 4Ks. Let me just jump over to this. It's not a box set, but it kind of is. The OSS 117 5-film collection. Now, a bunch of these that I have here are reissues, and I don't have the original discs nearby, so I'm not exactly sure what's been added. I know they're getting slipcases, so that may be part of the reissue process, is to get some folks excited about having them in a slipcase. I can't remember if this one came with a slipcase before or not, but I've only heard great things about this series. It's 5 films. Hubert Bonacieux de la Bath, alias OSS 117, first appeared in the 1957 film OSS 117, N'est pas mort. My French, not as good as it once was, folks. After the highly successful 1962 release of Dr. No, the OSS 117 character was brought back into action in the 1963 film OSS 117 Ceux de Chan. OS 117 is released. And the first one is OSS 117 is Not Dead. Starring Kerwin Matthews from Jack the Giant Killer, and I want to say isn't he in Seventh Voyage of Sinbad or something? I feel like he's in another Harryhausen movie that I'm blanking on. As the suave secret agent, the first of the 5 films in this beautifully restored collection, and co-starring Irina Demick. A year later, Matthews returned as OSS 117 in the 1964 film Banco a Bangkok pour OSS 117, OSS 117 Panic in Bangkok, which co-starred Robert Hossein and Pierre Angeli. In 1965, Frederick Stafford, the star of Hitchcock's Topaz, took over the... That's so funny. I just watched Topaz. And thinking about that lead character in Topaz, I didn't know him that well, so I didn't find him as engaging in that Hitchcock film, but I could see him actually playing this character pretty well based on what I know of it. Took over as OSS 117 role in the film Furia Abaya por OSS 117, that is OSS 117 Mission for a Killer, and reprised the role in the 1966 film, I'm just going to do the English title, OSS 117 Mission to Tokyo. After a 1-year hiatus, OSS Secret Agent with Kurt Jurgens. He's in the movie with Robert Mitchum, The Enemy Below. Really great World War II, Navy versus U-boat movie that I love. That I think Kino put it out on Blue. I think so. Let's see here. I'm losing my place here. Returned to the 1968 film OSS 17 Double Agent, at this time starring John Gavin from Psycho as the deadly secret agent, with Kurt Jurgens, Margaret Lee, Luciana Paluzzi, George Eastman, and Robert Hossein appearing in his second OSS 117 film. So you have 5 films. They're in French with English subtitles, which is interesting because the actors mentioned are American actors. So you have 5 films on 3 discs. So you have 2 films, 1 film. And then in terms of features, there's nothing listed here, so it may just be the films, which is still a pretty good deal to get all these films. But I'm very curious, again, about having American actors, I guess, dubbed in French. It doesn't say anything about an English track. But regardless, I've heard that these are fun. If you're a James Bond fan, OSS 117 should be up your alley. That's, again, a re-release. And then I've got some more re-releases and one that isn't, at least. Start with Running Scared, Peter Hyams' buddy cop movie from 1986. Starring, of course, Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal. Peter Hyams, I'm a huge fan of, especially Busting, but I also like Outland, the Relic. He made a ton of different kinds of movies, and he's a very interesting writer. I think he's a great writer, and he wrote T.R. Baskin, that movie that Fun City put out late last year with Candice Bergen. He's got a really varied sort of abilities as a writer and character. Busting is obviously kind of in the vein of this. Busting is 2 drug cops, Elliot Gould and Robert Blake. That's his feature debut, I want to say. And I just watched, it's funny, I just watched one of his TV movies that he did, because he did several, I want to say several TV movies, but like at least one right before he did Busting. And so I just find him sort of fascinating as a filmmaker. Goodnight My Love is the one I'm trying to think of. It's from 1972. It's an ABC movie of the week with who was in it? It was Richard Boone. He's not playing Philip Marlowe, but it's on YouTube. It's called Goodnight My Love. It's an interesting and enjoyable short detective movie. Anyway, I'm getting way off track here. Let's talk about Running Scared, which, to me is, with Midnight Run. I forgot he did Sudden Death, Capricorn 1, Time Cop, End of Days, 2010, Stay Tuned, The Presidio, a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, this is one of the sort of quintessential 80s buddy cop movies. It's coming in the wake of Beverly Hills Cop, and definitely feels like it's trying to capitalize on that area. But I was going to say, along with something like Midnight Run, which isn't buddy cops, but is buddies, it's one of the more known, I think, and fondly remembered buddy movies from the 80s. The great Peter Hyams, he did Narrow Margin, the remake too. Directs Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal in the motion picture that asks the question, how come the bad guys always drive good cars? The answer has them running scared. In this lightning-paced comic thriller, Ray, that's Gregory Hines, and Danny, that's Billy Crystal, are the wild men of the Windy City's police force, that's Chicago, where this is set. The pair's unorthodox methods get results in a tough town until they come up against Julio Gonzalez, that's Jimmy Smits, a smooth-talking drug dealer who's bucking to become Chicago's first Spanish godfather. Trying to nail Gonzalez, they blow a delicate undercover operation and are sent on a forced vacation in Key West, where they discover the good life of warm weather and warmer women. The new locale makes them decide to retire, but not before putting Gonzalez behind bars first. Stellar cast includes Stephen Bauer, Darlan Flugel, who's in To Live and Die in L.A., Joe Pantoliano, John Grise, and Dan Hedaya as their boss. I'm a fan of Dan Hedaya. He's in Blood Simple and a bunch of other movies. You'll recognize him. But yeah, very enjoyable. This has an audio commentary by Hyams, which I remember being pretty good. Making of, featurette, Billy Crystal outtakes, which are funny. Selected electronic press kit scenes. And now it's got this slipcase. No alternate artwork on this one. But if you are into the film and you want a nice slipcase, again, I can't remember if it had all these features or not. But definitely worth picking up if you're a fan of 80s cop movies, Running Scared. Okay, now this one is one that I don't think has come out on disc before. This is The Outside Man, and it is filmed by Jacques Deray. This one is newly restored from a 4K scan of the 35 camera negative. Jacques Deray directed this gritty 70s action classic featuring an iconic cast, which includes Jean-Louis Trintignant, the conformist, Anne Margaret, Roy Scheider, Angie Dickinson, Michael Constantin, Umberto Orsini, and Ted DeCorsia as they battle each other for their lives from the back alleys of downtown Los Angeles to the posh mansions of Beverly Hills. Trintignant is a hitman imported from Paris to kill LA's biggest mafia boss, unknown to his employer, the mafia boss's own son, and the son's beautiful wife, Dickinson. He doesn't know. That's kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but it's kind of revealed early that basically the son and the wife hired him to kill the dad. But when he, having done his job, the hitman looks for his reward. It comes in the form of another hitman, Roy Scheider, sent to kill him and thus remove any links to the murder. Sexy Anne Margaret is Trintignant's only ally as he and Scheider play a murderous game of cat and mouse. Nail-biting suspense, exciting high-speed chases. There's a really good car chase in this. And one of the most unique climactic gun battles ever filmed are all part of The Outside Man, boasting ultra cool score by Michel Legrand, who did the Thomas Crown Affair. The 2-disc special edition includes both the uncut 112-minute English and the 111-minute French versions of this 1970s thrill ride. The amazing cast includes Jackie Earle Haley as a little boy who gets himself in trouble, not surprisingly. John Hillerman from Magnum, and of course, all the Bogdanovich movies. He's in a ton of those. Alex Rocco, Talia Shire, Carmen Argenziano, and Georgia Engel. So this is kind of a neat one because it's never been on Blu-ray before, I don't think, or not in the States. I'm losing my mind. I'm pretty sure it hasn't. And it is a solid thriller, and it's neat to see Roy Scheider playing this kind of a villain. Although it's complex. Let's just put it like that. It's complex, and the movie unfolds in a certain way. Jean-Louis Trintignant, not always my favorite actor. It's just a little bland is mean. I don't want to go that far, but he just sometimes he doesn't have the. He's a little quieter, and there's something about that maybe this movie needed something different. But I know this is a big favorite for some cinephiles, and a movie that is definitely sought after for the cast and for just being a solid thriller from the 70s that's been sort of underseen to this point. So anyway, I'll close out with The Outside Man, and this one includes an audio commentary by film historian Howard S. Berger, Steve Mitchell, and Nathaniel Thompson, includes the uncut version in English and Un Homme est Mort in French, plus theatrical trailers for both versions. So that is The Outside Man. And that'll do it for this round of Kino stuff. I will be back to talk about more Kino stuff very soon. I've got a bunch to talk about. And thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.